Good morning. A team of training workshop by video conference during disaster due to COVID-19 of the Board of Trustees of San Elizario I.S.D. held this October 17th, 2020 at 8:38 a.m. is now called to order. Mr. Madrid, roll call, please.
Myrna Hernandez, you're present.
Yes, sir.
Becky Romero.
Present.
Eduardo Chavez.
I am present.
Oh man. Irene Jaques.
Present.
Sandra Licon.
Present.
Ms. Garcia.
I'm here, Fernie.
And I'm here.
Okay, so let the record show all board members are present. We'll now proceed with the script. On March 16th, Governor Greg Abbott granted a request by Attorney General Ken Paxton to temporarily suspend a limited number of open meetings laws to the extent necessary to allow telephonic or video conference meeting in response to the coronavirus. In accordance with those suspended rules, we certify the following. Notice of this training has been posted online for at least 72 hours. Although members of the board are not gathered in a central physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by a telephone call and internet access. We are meeting by use of both telephone conference call and online access through use of an email link for questions. If a member of the public submitted written comments in advance, the board president or a member of the administration will read the comments into record before or during the board's consideration of that item. If you would like to provide a comment at a future meeting conducted by video conference or telephone call, please follow instructions on the meeting's notice. All other meeting procedures will adhere to board adopted procedures to the extent practicable. An audio recording of this training is being made and will be available to the public at a later date. We apologize in advance for any unforeseeable difficulties and ask for your patience as we navigate unprecedented conditions. If you have any questions about these suspended laws, please call the Office of the Attorney General at 888-672-6787 or by email at toma@oag.texas.gov. With that, we will proceed to the Pledge of Allegiance. May we please rise? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And San Elizario I.S.D. mission statement is, San Elizario I.S.D. mission is to graduate students with skills to meet the demands of a changing world by promoting student success as non-negotiable, channeling resources to match the learning needs of students, employ and retain quality staff, so that San Elizario is a proud, innovative, and academically superior district. Okay, item 2, school board training, a team of 8 training. Presenter, Ms. Monica Jaloma, LSG coach. Good morning, Ms. Jaloma, and welcome.
Good morning, Board Chair, Ms. Licon. Good morning, Dr. Mesa Chavez. Good morning, rest of my trustees. I've missed you. Thank you so much for inviting me back. I am excited about our training today. So thank you also for your flexibility. I know you use WebEx, but we are going to be using Zoom because I'm going to try to make this as you know, when we meet face to face, I ask you to share with a partner and we get into groups. So Zoom gives us that flexibility. So thank you again for putting up with a change. I moved your cheese. So thank you for coming along and being a team player. This is also, so the training that I'm going to be doing today is also a first time that I do virtually. So I'm going to be struggling. Well, no, I'm not going to be struggling. I'm going to be asking for your patience as I move from one screen to the next. For today's training, we're going to be watching some videos. And then we're going to be going into breakout rooms. So I'm going to ask Horacio, can you give me access as a host, please, so I can create my breakout rooms? Thank you. All right, thank you, Horacio. Okay, so let me share my screen. I have a presentation ready for you. So today we are going to be engaging in 3 hours of Team of 8 training. So welcome to your Team of 8, to your virtual Team of 8 training. To get us started, I do have some Zoom norms. So, you know, it's going to be 3 hours. I know that there might be some distractors at home, but we're going to be all in. We're going to be engaging as a team. So I'm just asking you to be all in during our training. Also, if you can please keep your screen on live video mode. I want to see your beautiful faces. I've missed you. So if you can please go ahead and leave your screen on live video. You can keep yourself muted unless you're contributing to, and you know that, right? Because of the feedback and all of that. If you're contributing to our conversation, go ahead and unmute yourself. I think that as we've been doing training, it's kind of like, okay, you're muted. Like that's the phrase of, you know, training. You're muted. Go ahead and unmute yourself. So if you can unmute yourself, and then let me know if you need to step away for a little bit. We'll be taking breaks. I know that it's hard to be sitting in front of a screen for a long time, but we'll be taking a couple of breaks. And I may use cold call. We call it cold call. So I may just like call on you and ask you a question. I call these like a voluntold. I may ask for a volunteer, or I may ask for a voluntold if I don't have any volunteers. So just cold call is like the, I guess, professional way of saying voluntolds. Okay. All right. So Ms. Licon started your meeting today, our workshop, reading your San Elizario I.S.D. mission statement. I would like for you to read it one more time on your own. And as you're reading the statement, I want you to think about what stands out for you. As you're reading the statement, what stands out and what has the board been doing to make this mission statement a reality? So you're gonna do two things. What stands out and what has the board been doing to make it a reality? I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about it, and then I'm going to send you with a partner to talk about it. All right. So now that you have something in mind, I'm going to go ahead and send you into a breakout room. I'm going to give you a total of 3 minutes. Okay. When I send you to the breakout, you're going to see 2 minutes, and I'm giving you 60 seconds just for you to know that it is time for you to come back. You don't have to click anything. You don't have to do anything. The system will take you into the breakout room automatically, and then it will bring you back automatically. When you get the 60-second warning, don't click anywhere. It's just for you to know, okay, we need to wrap this up because we're gonna go back to whole group. Okay, so I'm pairing up Ms. Romero and Ms. Licon just because they're in the same location, keeping that social distance. So I'm gonna pair them up. And then I have Mr. Fernie and Ms. Jaques together. I have Mr. Chavez and Dr. Mesa Chavez together. And then Michelle Garcia and Ms. Hernandez, you will be together as well, okay? So a total of 3 minutes. What stands out and what has the board been doing? You'll come back in 3 minutes. Have fun. Okay, Mr. Horacio, so I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna listen to the conversations. We'll have about, let me see, we should have about 32 seconds left.
We had a quick conversation.
And if I try to get the volume on the Samsung tablet, forget it.
We're back. We're back.
All right.
There
Click
you
on
are.
sideways.
Oh, am I?
Ms. Licon, yes.
What do I need to do this way?
There you are. Yes,
There.
perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so who would like to share what stood out and what has the board been doing?
Okay, like for us, where it says that changing, okay, where it says meets the demands of a changing world by promoting student success is non-negotiable. Talk about changing world right now with this pandemic. It has totally changed. And yes, we were discussing that, you know, student success and their learning was not even negotiable at any point. So we pivoted to online learning. Everyone came aboard. The teachers that we have literally, you know, came up to the plate and have been working diligent with our kids, administration, supporting the teachers. We said when it came to the resources, again, that was even something we didn't discuss. Administration has made sure as well as the board, that those resources are there to help the teachers continue the online learning. And for those that can't do the online, make sure that those packets are out there for the children that have to have more of a paper type of form of learning. I think that was pretty much it on our end.
How great it is to be working together as a team and everybody doing such a splendid job overall.
Great. Thank you, ladies, for sharing. So let's give Ms. Licon and Ms. Romero a round of applause. Good job. Thank you. All right. Who would like to go next? Ms. Jaques.
So we discussed, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
We discussed also the same part of that, of our statement on the meeting the demands of a changing world and providing those skills. But our take was more like the CTE, the early college, providing opportunities for them, not just in one area and not just, just not a straight path to that, to graduating, but expanding on what we've been able to encourage, what the administration brings to us and we can support.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Ms. Jaques and Mr. Madrid. Let's give them the fabuloso clap. You guys remember the fabuloso clap? So it's gonna be psh, 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 psh. Fabuloso. It is Saturday, right? There needs to be some cleaning. Fabuloso. Good. Thank you
Okay.
for sharing.
That's
Who'd
the
like to go
meeting
next?
That's gonna happen, Miss Halova. So-
Right, that's it.
I'll go next. I'll go next.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. And Dr. Mesa Chavez, that was your partner.
Yes. So
All
we
right.
also talked about the changing world. Dr. Mr. Chavez brought up some really good points in reference to that Ms. Licon brought up. I personally, what I told Dr. Mr. Chavez is that, it's very rare to have organizations that have a mission statement and actually follow through. And I'm very proud that as far as what I'm concerned in our group, I see that those are not just words. I see that we're living those words. And there's many examples of us fulfilling those words. The changing world, we adapted, we brought the kids the resources, or brought the resources to a table that they need to continue their education. We are trying to retain quality staff. We just gave our teachers a raise. Ms. Jaques brought up, the early college. I'm really grateful for Dr. Mesa Chavez and her administration on pushing and bringing that in. I also, noticed that we, on this last meeting, the principal brought up the point of the dual language program that we're implementing. I know some of the negative feedback on that was that parents were getting involved, but I think that that's good news, because now, it means that parents are understanding the material and they're getting involved to help their kids, which is very important for success. So in summary, my point of view is that for very rarely does this happen, is that I see that we're not just saying the words, we're actually doing what those words say.
Yeah, walking the talk, right? Not just talking that talk. Great job. Thank you so much. Let's do the alligator clap. So alligator clap. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Madrid. All right, last but not least, let's go with our ladies group, Ms. Garcia and Ms. Hernandez.
What stood out to both of us was the channeling resources for our students to be academically successful, especially during this time with the whole COVID situation. The district has improvised and adapted very quickly to provide those resources to our students and to our staff, to be able to keep on teaching the students the way they need to, even if it's virtually. So that's what stood out to both of us, the resources, because without resources, we don't have anything.
Yeah, teaching didn't stop, right? Our buildings had to be closed, but even though our buildings were closed, students continued to learn. And your superintendent made sure that your kids had what they needed. Your students and your staff had what they needed to make sure that even though buildings were closed, learning was not closed. Students kept learning as well. All right, thank you so much. So let's do the clam claps. Clam claps. Thank you. All right. So keeping that in mind, let me go ahead and share my screen again. So keeping in mind the conversation that we just had, keeping in mind your mission as well. Okay, what I would like for us to think about now, we're gonna add more thinking to our process is just remind me, what are your responsibilities as a board? What are you responsible for as a board?
Ms. Haloma, this is Ms. Garcia.
Yes, ma'am.
We're responsible for policy making, taking care of the financial side of the district, and holding our superintendent accountable.
Yeah, yeah, that's what you're responsible for, right? You need to adopt those policies. You need to hire your superintendent. You also oversee that annual budget. Okay, and also one of your responsibilities as a board is to set that vision and set the goals for the district, which is, you know, all of those things you have already done. So a couple of weeks, I was able to attend a training, a workshop with Mr. Rod Page. And I don't know if you're familiar with Rod Page. He was our 7th U.S. Secretary of Education around 2001, 2005. So an interesting fact that I learned about him afterwards was he was with President Bush when he was told about the Twin Towers. You know how Bush was at a school and they let him know about it. So Rod Page was with President Bush, former President Bush at that time. So he also served in the U.S. Navy. He was a teacher. He was a college coach. He also was a trustee and an officer at Houston I.S.D. A few decades back. One of the things, though, that really caught my attention as I was listening to his conversation was that in addition to everything that you mentioned before on what your responsibilities are, you know, set the vision, set the goals, hire your superintendent, set that policy to help your superintendent achieve those goals and oversee the budget. Your first responsibility, or the first responsibility of every board, is to build themselves into a single unit. We've talked about how, you know, Dr. Mesa Chavez does not have 7 individual bosses, right? It's just one boss. As a board, you as a board are Dr. Mesa Chavez boss. So it is important to develop into that single unit. Once you develop as a single unit, then you have that common vision. You will review the vision, the mission that you have for your district. So the main thing, the first responsibility before everything else takes place, first thing is building the board building themselves as a single unit, and in whatever function that you may take part on, or whatever you do, it's the board coming together as one, not as different voices, you know, different opinions, but coming together as one. As I was doing a training a few weeks ago with another district, one of the conversations that came up was, well, you know, like, I don't know if I can agree with, you know, the other 6 trustees. I don't know, you know, that I can just go ahead and say yes to whatever they say. And the intent is not to say yes to whatever the other trustees are sharing or want to be done. We have 7 people, right? In a board, it's like your team of 7 trustees. Every person is going to think differently. And it's illogical to think that all 7 are just going to come up with the same idea and agree to the same thing without engaging in a discussion, without getting that voice heard. So I'm not worried when, you know, when I have boards and they're sharing their thoughts. Like, that's what we want to see. We don't want to see this harmony of, okay, I'll just agree with that. That's where they want to go. I'm going to be a team player and I'm just going to agree. I'm just going to agree with that. That is not an effective team. we call that, there's a book that's called The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. And that is one of those dysfunctions, like this false sense of harmony where everybody just says yes because they don't want to get into conflict. They don't want to, maybe come across as the naysayers or the Debbie Downers, or, oh, here's this person again asking a ton of questions about it. That is a false sense of a team. A true team is going to have discussions. A true team is going to have difficult conversations. However, the key thing is once you talk about that issue, or once you talk about that theme or that topic, or you have that conversation, and everybody has an opportunity to share their thoughts, then when you come out and you share whatever decision was made, are you coming out together as a team? Are you coming out and are you sharing that information as a unit, as one unit? Not as, different thoughts, and none of these like, well, that's what they decided, but they wanted to do, even though I did not agree. One of the most important things is building yourself as a unit, and whatever decision is made, then once you had your opportunity to share your thoughts, then coming out to the community, coming out together as one unit with the decision being made as a team. Okay, so yeah, I'm not suggesting, just go ahead and agree with whatever is being said. I'm just saying there's a way for us to share those thoughts. There needs to be time for you to engage in that discussion, make sure that everybody's thoughts are heard, and then make your decision as a team. But once that decision is made, then it's the board's decision. It is not me, so-and-so, or these two decided that they wanted to do that. Once that decision is made, that's our decision as a board. Okay, so before we talk about hiring, the superintendent, evaluating the superintendent, coming up with that mission, the vision, the goals, the budget, the first thing and the most important thing that you can do is build your unity, build your team. Okay, questions so far? How are we doing? We doing okay? All right. So that was one of the things that really caught my attention about Mr. Page. He talked about, first and foremost, before we engage in anything else, it needs to be, the team building themselves. So what we're going to do today is that I have prepared a workshop for you. I am a certified trainer for crucial conversations. I don't know if you can see this book. So it's a book that's called Crucial Conversations. I am a certified trainer for that. So I'm going to give you a little peek into what this training is all about. Let me share another screen. I have like a thousand of windows like opened over here. So let me share my other screen, and I would like to just go a little bit more on what these crucial conversations is all about. So let me just give you a heads up. These crucial conversations workshop, like we're not gonna go through the entire crucial conversations. Crucial conversations is like a 2-day training. So today we're just gonna, get a little sneak preview into it. And one of the things about crucial conversations is that before we engage in a conversation, many times we think that conversation starts when we actually engage and talk with the other person, right? That's when it starts. And I see Mr. Chavez like, no, great. That is not when the conversation starts. We can think of conversations divided like into 3 pieces. So we have the before we engage in a conversation, and then we have during, once we engage in that conversation with the other person, and then what happens after the conversation. So as we think about those 3 pieces, before we even engage in a conversation, the first part that needs to take place is that what they call for this module, work on me first. That's the first stage, work on me first. Under work on me first, there's three modules or three, things that need to take place. The first one is called getting unstuck. So we'll talk about get unstuck. Also, after we get unstuck, and we'll talk in a little bit, what does that mean? It's about starting with the heart. What is my intention? What is it that I want when I engage in this conversation? And then the third one is master my stories. Many times, we observe or we hear certain things and we immediately come up with a story, right? We're great at making stories of, oh, she didn't say good morning to me, she's upset. Or, I said hi and she didn't respond. Or, I was talking and she rolled her eyes. And immediately, based on those things, we start coming up with stories and we create these stories in our mind. And those stories makes us behave a certain way. So this first part is about working on me first before I even engage in a conversation. And today we're going to get to cover the first two. We're going to talk about get unstuck and start with the heart. Once I work on me first, then the next piece is during the conversation. And there's a lot of things happening during the conversation. But as we engage in a conversation, the most important thing is to make sure that we are here. So we call these like the pool of shared meaning. And pool of shared meaning means as I'm having this conversation and I'm adding, my thoughts and what I think about my opinions, making sure that that pool is open so the other person can also add their opinions and their thoughts. There's times when we engage in conversations and I might be the only one talking, and I don't give that other person an opportunity to share those thoughts, to share those ideas or those opinions. So as we're thinking about a conversation, I can be very passionate about what I think. I can be very passionate about my opinion, but I need to make sure that I'm as passionate about letting the other person share those thoughts and opinions as well. So this is going to be all about making sure that that pool, is open for that conversation. So see, if you notice, during we have my meaning, okay, based on the story that I made up, on what I observed and what I thought that I heard, sharing, what that meant to me and my story, what my story is, but also we have their meaning. So giving an opportunity to hear their story, their thoughts as well. Now, after that conversation takes place, then we have the after, okay? And that after is going to be moved to action. Many times we have a conversation and it's like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, we worked that out. But then what happens after? And what happens after, many times when we don't take care of that, many times we go back to that same behavior or that same situation that brought us back to needing to have that conversation first. Okay, so this is the whole framework for a crucial conversation. Today, we're going to be just dabbling on the before, and we're going to talk about getting unstuck and starting with the heart. In that discussion, we'll talk about the pool of shared meaning and what silence and safety is all about. But today, it would just be those two modules right there. So once we're done, I don't want you to go and be like, okay, I'm ready to engage in this conversation, because at this point we're not. We're just focusing on a little piece of it, okay? Like I said, this is a 2-day workshop. That cannot be squeezed into 3 hours because all of those modules, all of those strategies, we need to share those and we need time. Okay, so we're gonna be practicing today. Today we're gonna get started. And then you can make the decision as a board if this will be something that you want to continue, engaging. We can create like these 3-hour modules or 2 hours if you want to go through that whole framework. All right, questions about the framework and questions about what we're gonna do today. We're good? All right. Okay, so we're gonna start with our first. Let me just ask you a question. Can you see like my bar at the bottom? Yes. Let me see if I can move it. Here we go. Okay, perfect. So today we're going to start with the first module. And the first module says get unstuck. How to spot the conversations that are keeping you from what you want. Now, we are not going to treat every single conversation as a crucial conversation. I don't want you to walk around and say, well, I'm about to talk to my neighbor. This is going to be a crucial conversation. Or I'm about to talk to my son. This is going to be a crucial conversation. Not every conversation is going to be crucial, okay? So we're going to talk about what makes conversations crucial. Joseph Grenny, he's one of the authors for the book. So he says, the bottom line is this: if you don't talk it out, you will act it out. Okay, so how many times have we avoided to have a conversation, and the avoidance of having that conversation is making us act different, making us feel funny about someone with whom we are avoiding to have that conversation. So if you're feeling funny about having to engage in a conversation, or funny about how your daily interactions or those interactions used to be, if they're not the way that they were before, then you might have to have a conversation with that person, okay? The important thing is this: if we don't talk it out, we're going to end up acting it out. And the way we might act it out might not be the way that we want, for that to happen in the relationship that we have. When we're talking about relationships, just for this, it can be your work relationships, your relationships with your family. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a partner relationship. Okay. All right. So I have a question for you all. And for this one, I don't want you to be like, oh no, I always listened to what my parents said. I always, did whatever they told me to do. That's not true. I want you to think about, how did you get your way as a child? Okay, Ms. Romero, none of these. I always did what my parents told me to do. Just think about, something that you really wanted. What did you do to get your way as a child? Okay, what did you do to get what you wanted? So I'm gonna send you out again to breakout groups. I'm gonna put you with the same partner. I'm gonna give you 2 minutes. This time, let's see. I'll give you 2 minutes. It's gonna say 1 minute and then like a 60-second warning, right? Don't click on leave breakout room. Just stay there so you can get your 2 full minutes. So as I'm sending you with your partner, and if your partner says, oh no, I always behaved and I always listened to my parents and what they told me to do, push your partner and say, okay, what did you do to get your way as a child? So you have, let me do this. Let me set my timer for 1 minute. Well, let me give you 2 minutes and just like a 30-second, 15-second warning. Okay. So 2 minutes and then 50-second warning. What did you do to get your way as a child? Ready? Have fun. Be real. I'll see you in a little bit.
I didn't know it was going to get a really whatever I wanted, but I was daddy's girl. There you go. And but anyway, I respected the
All
fact
right,
that they
welcome back.
Okay.
That was fun. I was able to sneak into some of the rooms and listen to those conversations. All right, so who would like to go first? As you reflected on how you got your way as a child, how did that happen?
Okay, this is Mr. Romero. The way I was brought up, like I was telling my partner, is that I always respected the fact that it was a decision between my mother and my father, even though I didn't know how to get away with things, but I respected that. And that's the way I brought up my children, knowing that there's two sides to a story and have the respect and make a decision as what we're going to get, what we're not going to get, but have it set.
Okay, Ms. Romero, so what did you do to get you really wanted something, and what did you do?
I would go to my mother, ask her first,
Uh-huh.
and then she would give me her story, and then throw the package to my dad, and I would go to dad and listen to him. And I know daddy's girl, so what can I say? I got away with a lot. That's why I always kept him going last, because he was a major decision. But then at the same time, I respect it.
I love it. So you went to your dad whenever you wanted something. You were daddy's little girl, and daddy was always going to tell Ms. Romero, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, who would like to go next?
I guess we'll go next.
Thank you.
We were saying that, you know, I like me myself, I with my mom, it was very, she was a disciplinarian in the house. So if I would go and ask her something, she would make me do something, work for it to be rewarded. My dad was the pushover, also me, daddy's little girl. So anything that I would ask him, you know, I would get. And of course my mom would get be livid, but because, you know, it was something I was telling Michelle, our parents, that generation is very different to this generation of parents, where kids nowadays just ask for something and they're given it without any, you know, having to work for it. And with our generation, we had to work for it. And Michelle was expressing the same thing, that with her dad, you know, he was strict and she had to do the same thing as well.
All right, so let me see if I understood this right. If you needed to, well, there were times when with your mom will make you go work for it. If you needed to do something, your mom will make you work for it. But if you didn't feel like working for it, then you would just go to your dad.
Well, see, it's in my case, my parents divorced
It's okay
when I was 13.
yes.
So I grew up pretty much with my mom. You know, when I was up to the age of 13, my dad would give us everything. I struggled when they divorced because my mom was like, oh no, not anymore, you know. Even for a simple thing like, mom, can you call and ask for this? And she would make me, you know, nope, call yourself. Or mom, what does this mean? What does this word mean? Well, look it up in the dictionary. You know, that's how tough my mom was with me. So yeah, it was hard.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Ms. Hernandez.
Thanks.
And Ms. Garcia, it was the same thing?
Mine was different. I didn't grow up with my both parents. I only grew up with my dad. So he was really tough. He was strict. I'm kind of like him still. Yeah, growing up, I guess anytime I needed something, I'd have to work hard for it. You know, there was nothing, my dad was a single parent, so there was nothing really given to us. It was kind of like you work for it and you get it. That's an excellent work ethic that he instilled in us. So
Thank you for sharing. So let me just ask for a little bit of clarification. When you said, like, you know, work for it, is that like, you know, like you really wanted something and then say, you know, I already did this, I already did that, I already did that, blah, 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 blah. This was completed. Now can I have this thing, please? Because I already did all of those things for you. Is that what you're saying?
It was kind of like a negotiation type of thing. I
Okay.
think he would maybe I wanted new shoes, from the mall, and he'd say, cut the grass and do all these chores at home. And we were expected to. We grew up, we were three girls and my brother, so we grew up, cleaning for him and cooking. So we already did partially some of the things, but yeah, it was kind of like that. We wanted something, we had to negotiate our way to it.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Who would like to go next?
I'll go next. This is Sandra Licon. I also grew up in a single parent home. My mom was a single parent, and I was the oldest of the three siblings. So, with that said, in our home, we had to always have conversations. Like for everything, my mom would sit us down because she was a single parent and a working parent. I was in charge of really the home. When she was at work, I would take care of my siblings. So even if my younger siblings wanted something, it wasn't just like, I'm going to do I want this, this, and this. No, we'd sit down and have a conversation. And after a while, I even learned that by watching the younger ones, that all they had to do was beg, they would get whatever they wanted. So I would try to do that and turn up the charm. Didn't work when you're the oldest one. It really doesn't work that simply. You're kind of expected to do things. So for me in our home, literally, it was always just having to have those conversations and try to be kind of that little nagging voice in my mom's ear. Please, please, mom, I really do want to get, I want to have this done. And after all my chores and after everything that I had to do as a responsibility that I did have in our home, most of the time my mom would give in because we were doing what we had to do. But it was a lot of conversations. We always had to have those conversations. It was key in our home. It was key.
All right, so thank you for giving a little bit more clarification on those conversations, because when you first said, we'll have a conversation and we would talk about it, like I was envisioning, like you sitting down with your mom, like in the living room, and then talking about it, right? But then you mentioned, like I would do my things and then I would nag, mom, please, 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 please. So is that part of the, am I getting that right? Was that please, please, please begging part of the conversation?
Well, I learned that watching the younger ones, believe me, because that's what I had to do and they would get away with it. But being that older one and I knew that my younger siblings were watching me, no, I would actually sit down with my mom. And till this day, here we are many years later, and still I have we sit down and I try to do the same with our kids. Conversations in our home are key and they're essential for us to keep moving forward. So I'm hoping now with, my oldest one having his son, that he kind of reiterates the same thing and has those conversations because, they are crucial. They are crucial in the family dynamics. But it's a lot of conversing in our home.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Licon. Who go next?
I'll go next.
Thank you, Mr. Madrid.
Well, I was a perfect child, period.
I bet you were. I have no doubt.
Well, not really. You know what? With my parents, like I was telling Ms. Jaques, is that as far as wanting things and trying to get my way, I would talk to one and she would not agree, so I would talk to the other. My father was more of the one that would agree more with me as far as, I'm going to hacerlo, Jenny. That's how my mom's name was Jenny, so he would say, I'm going to hacerlo, Jenny. So I would always try to work both of them, and they might get into a little argument and stuff, but at the end, I got my way somehow. And I'll be the first one here in front of everybody to say I was a spoiled kid. I was. And I mean, it was weird in my childhood because we were at a time frame where you could go outside. You didn't have no video games. You had nothing like that. So you would be riding your bike, playing in the yard, and we would go out in the morning, me and my friends, and not come back till 7 p.m., 8 p.m. So we would stay out of their way. So as long as we weren't being trouble kids and what have you, everything was fine. Yeah. But as far as getting my way, it was like that. It was both parents discussing the yes and no's and the whys, and a lot of times I would get in my way. So and my friends would benefit out of it too, because they would include my friends.
That's great. So then you would play sides, right? play sides. Go to your mom, and then she will say no, so I'm just gonna go with my dad. And my dad always, you know, you both were more similar, so your dad will always let you get your way. Did I get that one right? Thank you, Mr. Madrid. Who go next? Miss Jaques, you wanna go next?
Something similar to Fernie's, but it would go in phases. So if it didn't work there, the negotiating, going from one parent to the other, then it would be like the whining. And then if it was like totally no, then I'd throw myself on the floor, maybe crying.
Oh, I like it. Thank you, Miss Jaques, for being so real. So I like how it goes into phases. First, you
Yes.
started with, you know, talking to one side, and then maybe the next, and then the begging, the negotiating, and then if that didn't work, then you just throwing a tantrum right there on the floor.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. Who go next? Was that you, Mr. Chavez? If you can go ahead and unmute yourself. All right.
I was trying to unmute myself. Yeah. Well, I told Dr. Mr. Chavez that, you know, unfortunately for me, I grew up in a single parent home and there's not a lot of money. Um, I guess the only thing with my mom was that she would allow me to do what I wanted because there was not a lot of me getting, you know, buying stuff as long as I didn't get in trouble in school. And I told my conversation with Dr. Mr. Chavez was more that I was forced to grow up too fast. So I kind of like, I don't know, I guess I disciplined myself to a point, not very well, right? Because I got into a lot of trouble too, but that was kind of like my way of getting things, you know, as long as my mom didn't get calls from school and I got good grades, she kind of just let me be.
All right. So everything, it was kind of like, you know, free for all, as long as your mom didn't hear that you were in trouble. You
Yes.
were able to do whatever you want. You just knew, as long as I don't get in trouble, then this will be okay.
Yes.
So kind of like asking for forgiveness instead of asking for permission type of thing.
Something like that, yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chavez. And Dr. Mesa?
I told Mr. Chavez that when you asked the question, I said, "Oh, I know what it is." Because I'm a twin, my mom used to like us, my twin sister and I, to dress up the same. So I remember being as early as 4 or 5 years old that we would go to the store. And if we really wanted two dresses, then my sister and I would kind of make a pact and say, okay, tell her you don't like this one, and I'll tell her I don't like that one. And then we would end up with two dresses because she would say, if I buy you what you want and what you want, will you wear them? And so we did that. So we negotiated amongst each other and we teamed up.
I like it, negotiating and teaming up. Okay, great, perfect. So let me go back to sharing my screen. And now that we talked about how you got your way as a child, now let's talk about those ways and let's try to figure out where would they go in this continuum of communication. Okay, so I have a line on your screen, and at one end there is violence, and at the other end there is silence, and in the middle there is this dialogue that Ms. Licon and a few of you shared, right? So that's why I was trying to be specific as far as that dialogue, because dialogue may sound or look different to us. So I wrote down the strategies that you use, okay? And as I share the strategies with you, let's go ahead and put them, categorize them either in the silence or the violence. Now, when we're talking about violence, this doesn't necessarily mean like physical violence or yelling, you know, even though Ms. Jaques gave us a very good one, right? For that violence of how she got her way. But let's not just think about physical violence or like, you know, raising and yelling the voice, okay? Let's also talk about, there might be other types of violence as well. So the first one that we had was, you know, Daddy's little girl. I'm Daddy's little girl and I'm just gonna go and ask for it. Where would that go? Would that fall under violence? Will it fall under silence? Or will it fall in this dialogue in the middle? What do you all think?
The daddy little girl thing?
Yes, like I'm daddy's little girl. I'm just gonna go and ask because I know that I'm gonna get my way.
I guess more leaning towards silence, maybe.
Is it silence?
Silence and
Violence, no?
All right, so we have two ends of the spectrum. We have silence and then we have violence. Why violence, Mr. Chavez?
No, I'm just messing around. I don't know. No, I guess honestly, I think it'd be because you're manipulating your father.
Hmm. So yeah, so seeing that manipulation, right, as a way of violence, and like I mentioned before, it doesn't necessarily have to mean like physical violence, but when we're going and we're manipulating, and I know that I'm gonna ask my dad because I'm daddy's little girl, or because my dad and I, are alike. Going in there and just asking, my dad, because I know these things, that could be used or that could be seen as a form of violence, right? It is not like this healthy dialogue of wanting to get things done and talking about it. It's just kind of like that manipulation that Mr. Chavez was talking about. Now, by the way, there's nothing wrong, okay? We're just reflecting on how we got our way as a child and categorizing where that goes. So that's the first one. And then we also had negotiating. Okay, so having to cut the grass, having to maybe do the dishes, or, after I did all of those things, then I'm gonna come and I'm gonna ask for it. Where would that fall?
That would be
Maybe
dialogue.
Dialogue.
Mhm.
All right, so if I go and say, hey, mom, go ahead.
Maybe it's like falls in between dialogue and violence.
Tell me more, Ms. Hernandez. Why?
Well, because you're negotiating, so that means that there's a back and forth, there's conversation happening. But at the same time, you're using like manipulation at the same time, like Mr. Chavez said.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like, okay, I already did all of these things. Can I get this thing now, right? It's not necessarily that piece of dialogue in the middle, but it's kind of like it leans more towards the violence because of that manipulation, right? All right. And then we have the begging. Begging, turn on the charm. Where would that one go?
Violence.
Why?
I guess it also falls into manipulation type. You're using your charm to get what you want.
Yeah, and using that begging, right? The begging and the nagging and the please, 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 right? So that falls more towards that side of the violence. How about playing sides?
Violence.
Why?
Manipulation again.
Yeah, there's that manipulation again. And then what about the faces, like the one that Miss Hackes shared? Like, I'm gonna start with this, and then if that one doesn't work, I'm gonna escalate it to this, and then to that, and then to that, until it's like a full-blown tantrum. And I can just picture you, Miss Chavez, Miss Hackes, like at the store, like, hitting the floor. I mean, that's the image that I get when you talked about.
It actually didn't happen at the store, but it would happen at my grandma's house more.
So you knew where to bring that one out.
Yeah, because then I would see the belt.
Right. So where would that one go?
I'm seeing that we're all very violent.
Seems like we're a very violent board.
Can need an example of silence.
All right. So I got some news for you. The reason why I asked you to share a strategy when you were a child to get what you want is because, if we think about it, and we reflect on it, that same strategy that you used when you were a child, you might be using those same strategies now as an adult. And the reason, of course, not the tantrum on the floor, the yelling and the screaming, I hope. But if those strategies, we learned those strategies as kids and those strategies worked for us. So if they work for us, why do we want to change them, right? It's kind of like if I behave this way and I'm accomplishing what I want to accomplish, I'm just going to continue using that same strategy to get my way. And you might know who to use it with. It might be these, kind of like, even though it was not that physical violence, but that maybe that manipulation or doing these things first to make sure that you can get, whatever it is that you're trying to get away with. Or that asking for forgiveness instead of permission, right? Like, where would that one fall? Would that be violence, silence, or manipulation? I mean, violence, silence, or dialogue?
Violence.
Why?
You said asking for permission?
Asking for forgiveness instead of permission.
I don't think that's always good to do.
I guess it's violence. I agree with
Yeah.
Ms. Garcia, because that's my thing, huh? I guess it's because you do something knowing what the consequences are, but you're kind of like, you know what? Well, I'll just ask for forgiveness instead of permission.
Yeah, I'm still choosing to engage in it, right? And if I get caught, which I'm hoping that I won't, then if I get caught, I'll just go ahead and ask for forgiveness. So yeah, like all of those, will be part of that violence. So as we engage in that violence, many times when we engage in these conversations, we might go into violence or silence because that's what we learned as kids. And sometimes we forget that there is like this medium in the continuum of having that dialogue and engaging in conversations rather than, turning on the charm or begging or, doing it. And then if I get caught, I'll just ask for forgiveness. We sometimes forget about that middle piece of the dialogue. And that's what we're going to be talking about during this module. So may I have a volunteer that can read where it says problem?
We're all stuck or not achieving what we want in a variety of areas, ranging from awkward or failing relationships to dysfunctional teams to cost, quality, or safety problems at work.
Yeah, that's a problem that we might have when we're stuck, okay? When we are stuck and we're not able to have that conversation. And I would like to make, kind of like a bold claim. The more time we spend on violence or silence, then the bigger the problem is going to get. If we're not able to engage in a conversation where we're adding to that pool of meaning that I shared before, where I get to share my thoughts and my ideas, and the other person is allowed to do the same thing, if we just stay in the ends of that continuum of silence or violence, those problems are just going to continue to grow. They're going to continue to get bigger. So that's the problem that we sometimes have to face. When we're stuck and we don't have those conversations and we're like, and hoping that it will resolve itself, right? She'll get or he'll get over it. He or she, will have to deal with it. I'm just telling the truth. So that's his or her problem. The more we stay in that violence or silence mode, then the bigger the problem is and the higher the cost it will be. In this case, with the work that we do, the higher the cost for our students, right? When we don't get to come together as a unit, or it can be with your child. If you don't have those conversations with your child or with your partner, with your neighbor, the bigger that problem gets. So there is a solution for that problem. May I have a volunteer for the solution, please?
Solution. Learn how to identify the crucial conversations that are the key to organizational, team, and interpersonal success.
Thank you. So like I mentioned before, not every conversation that you're going to have is going to be crucial, but we need to identify where that conversation has turned crucial. Not all of them start as crucial conversations either. There may be a point when you're like, oh, this is going to be a fun, innocent conversation that we're going to have. And then something happens. Has that happened to you? Like something happens, something is said, and boom, that conversation turns into like a very difficult, crucial conversation, right? So as we engage in conversations with other people, it's not like, the conversation flags gives you a flag and it's like, okay, this conversation is about to turn crucial. That's one of the things that we have to do, that we have to learn as we engage in these conversations, okay? And I'm gonna share some of those things to look for. So, like discussed before, the intent when having a conversation is to make sure that we pay attention to this pool of shared meaning. Just like how uh, passionate I am to give my point across, to share my ideas, I also need to make sure that the other person is able to share those ideas as well. Okay, so keeping that pool of shared meaning open. There's many times when we say things or when we do things, when our body language gives across the idea of I don't want to engage, or I don't feel safe, or I don't care what you say, and that pool gets smaller and smaller and smaller. The smaller the pool, the less likelihood we'll have of engaging in a positive, crucial conversation. So remember, keeping that pool of share meaning open. Okay, so when we're talking about that pool of shared meaning, this is about the facts, the experiences, opinions, and feelings held by participants in a conversation that are understood and appreciated by all. So it is about making it safe for that other person to share his or her thoughts, okay? And making sure that, facts. So what are the facts? What are those experiences? What are those opinions? What are those feelings? All of those four things need to be able to share. Many times we just share the facts, which say, well, you rolled your eyes, or you didn't say good morning to me, you didn't reply to my good morning, or I waved and you didn't wave back, or I said this and you stayed quiet. Many times we share facts, or sometimes we just shared feelings. Well, I felt when you rolled your eyes, I felt that you didn't like what I said, blah, 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 right? And engaging in that and in just pointing one thing instead of the whole picture does not help that conversation or that relationship. So as we're talking about the pool of shared meaning, we need to make sure that we are sharing all of those things, all four: facts, experiences, opinions, and feelings. We need to be very clear and we need to be very detailed as possible. Like when Ms. Licon shared, well, we just engaged in a conversation. And in my mind, it was like conversation in this living room, right? With Ms. Licon acting, like very grown-up-ish, and engaging in a conversation where there is dialogue. Then, it was kind of like, the negotiating. Then the more details, the more questions that I asked, more details came up, right? So being able to have that clear picture for that other person. Questions? Who has questions up to here? Are we good? Give me a thumbs up if we're okay. All right, thank you. Okay. So, I shared the book with you. Today, we're only going to engage in those two. You can go ahead and buy the book if you want to. This book is available. I'm just going to be honest, though. When I read the book, I didn't see like the whole framework. So going through the training gave me a better perspective and a clear idea of how this needs to be used. So that's just for you to know, we're using that book. Okay. So let's watch this video here. I have a video for you here. And as we watch this interaction between Michelle and her manager, okay, I want you to pay attention to this. They're meeting to discuss a project plan. If you are Michelle, how are you feeling and what different issues are you facing in this situation? So put yourself in Michelle's shoes. If you're her, how are you feeling as you're having this conversation with your manager? And what are the issues that you're having to face? Let me share my computer sound so everybody can hear. All right, here we go.
Well, your team spent over a week to come up with a plan. How long do you think it'll take to bring this project in?
It'll
take just over 6 months. 6 months and a week to be precise. Is that what you were thinking?
Well, this may be a stretch, but I was thinking we finish the project by the end of the quarter.
Well, it's a good thing we're talking about it now, before we've made any commitments, because there's no way to finish it by then. That's half the usual time.
Well, that's why I brought you onto this job in the first place. You have a way to do the impossible.
Well, thanks for the confidence, but there's just no way to get it done. This is really impossible.
Perhaps I didn't make myself clear enough on how important this is. We're not here to argue about what's possible. It's your job to figure this out and get it done by the end of the quarter. Project launches are at stake here. And besides, I've already agreed to the date. The accelerated schedules are already in the master plan, and everyone's counting on us.
Wait a minute. You've already made a commitment? You agreed to a deadline before talking to me about whether or not it was even feasible?
Management needs this to happen in order for us to hit plan. Are you forgetting how hard I worked to get you promoted to this position? You know what I said about you? I said you were a team player. Was I mistaken?
All right. So as we watch this video, if you were Michelle, how would this make you feel?
Pressured.
Pressured, why?
And obligated.
Because he's putting all that pressure on her, knowing that he already made a commitment before speaking to her about it. So it has to be done, no matter what.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Hernandez.
Perhaps even manipulated and you said obligated, because now he's set a commitment for that time frame.
Yeah, so he had already set a commitment. What part of the conversation will make Michelle feel manipulated? What was said that will make her feel manipulated?
Where he said that he had the confidence in her, that he almost figures that she can do it. So now she's feeling like, oh, he's kind of like grooming her and telling her, you should have been, I know you can do it. So now, you should be able to keep up to par, That's how I saw it, that
Yeah.
it's kind of manipulative.
And he also threw in her face that he worked really hard to get her a promotion.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah. Have you forgotten how hard I worked for you, right? Something like that, he said. Yeah. So what are the different issues that Michelle is facing in this conversation?
I think she's kind of feeling like her knowledge of what like she can do, she's kind of already has an idea of like, this is how long it should take. But her supervisor's kind of saying like, no, well, disregard that, you're going to do this. And maybe she's thinking of all the things that could go wrong with a shortened timeline. That just adds pressure to what needs to get done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so shorter time, right? Maybe the end work is not going to have that high quality, or all the mistakes that may happen because of that shortened timeline. So that can be one issue that she's facing. The other issue that you've mentioned earlier was feeling that manipulation, right? Like he threw at her face that he worked hard to get her there. So kind of like, that quote unquote letting him down because he's saying that he knows she's very capable, right?
Mm-hmm.
What else? What else are you noticing?
I would feel like my job is at stake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I don't get this done in the time that he wants, when I know it's not going to be able to be done in the time that he's asking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So maybe she feels threatened that she might end up losing her job. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we consider this conversation a crucial conversation. Why? What makes this conversation crucial? What do you think?
Could go
Oh.
ways, I guess, that either she's gonna make it happen because he's setting her up for that, or just failure and out of the picture, fired or something like that.
Yeah, her job is like a stake, right? This is like a high stakes for us. If she says no, then she may end up getting fired. Thank you, Ms. Jaques. Mr. Chavez, was that you were going to share?
No. I was gonna say I couldn't hear whoever was speaking.
Oh, thank you. Did you hear Ms. Jaques at the end?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Ms. Chavez, Dr. Mesa Chavez?
I'm sorry, say again?
So what makes this conversation crucial? Ms. Jaques mentioned, she might end up losing her job. What might be another reason why?
Well, but I think that because there wasn't I guess all the details discussed in advance, and it's kind of the relationship is being built under pressure as opposed to just like a true consideration on both sides. In other words, the gentleman is very clearly in charge of making all of the decisions without really considering the other person, which, is just a recipe, I think, for just a really complicated situation.
Yeah, there's those opposing opinions, right? The manager says it needs to be done by this date, and she's like, well, that's not going to be possible. And this is a high stake conversation for her because she might end up losing her job. So when we talk about crucial conversations, there's three things that we look for. There are three elements that must be present in order for that conversation to be crucial. Like I said before, not every conversation will be crucial, but there are three elements that need to be present in order for that conversation to turn into a crucial conversation. So the first one will be opposing opinions. Okay, I may have an opinion, the other person may have a different opinion. Okay, that's the first element. The second element is strong emotions. Okay, strong emotions, and this can be like, a person might be stressed out, they may feel very passionate about their point, so strong emotions are present during this conversation. And the last element is high stakes. The high stakes is what makes the conversation crucial, either for both or for just one person. In the example that I showed you in that video, there was high stakes for both, right? The manager said, oh yeah, we're gonna meet this deadline. And his high stakes, it was kind of like saving face, right? Like he said it's gonna be done by this, and that he was gonna make it happen. Whatever needed to happen, it was gonna happen by the time that he said so. And for her, it was making sure that she provided quality work within that time frame, right? So as we're thinking about high stakes, this high stakes piece can be for both people engaging in this conversation or for just one. This doesn't have to be present for both. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that high stake and the strong emotions. High stakes and strong emotions can be present in only one person, okay? Or they can be present in both. All right, so look for those strong emotions and high stakes. You might be cool as a cucumber, but the other person might not be, because there's strong emotions for the other person in this conversation. So pay attention to that. Strong emotions and high stakes can be in just one person or both. Opposing opinions, of course, will be, both of you are having that opposing opinion, okay? So when we are looking, one of the things that we need to pay attention to is conversations may just start as a casual conversation, but they might turn into a crucial conversation where those three elements are present: opposing opinions, strong emotions, and high stakes. Okay. So let's see how she does. How do we typically respond to crucial conversations? Okay, let's return to Michelle and Bruce, and let's see what Michelle does.
I said you were a team player. Was I mistaken?
No, I want to be a team player, but,
But what?
well, I've already got a staff that's spread too thin, and I don't think there are enough hours in the day.
Are you saying that you're not committed to the company's success?
Well, I guess we'll do whatever it takes.
I knew I could count on you. One more thing. I took Williams off your team to put him on another job. You'll have to do your best to get by without him.
All right. So how did she do?
Not good.
Tell me more. Why not?
Well, because she's allowing her boss to have, I guess, unrealistic expectations, and she's not advocating for herself. As far as, like, for example, that where they removed the last team member from her team, you can tell it really bothered her, but she didn't say anything.
Yeah, she didn't say anything. So in this spectrum of violence or silence, where did she go?
She went to the
silent.
silent side.
Silent.
She went to silence, right? She went to straight into that silence. And where was he? Was he on the violence or silence, or in the middle, in dialogue?
Silent.
Silent.
Where was he?
I would
Silent.
say
Silence.
In the violence, right? Oh, I thought you said, I'm sorry, that's my headphones. Yeah, he went into violence, right? And you notice that, how do you know that he was into the violence? He didn't yell. He was not, throwing a tantrum. How do we know that he was in the violence side of it?
I think there's like resources, being taken away. Like there's all these barriers being created to, you want to have a successful project, but you see the barriers that are being brought up, and kind of just being ignored along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Kind
Yeah,
of like a tunnel vision.
yes. Thank you, Dr. Mesa. What else? What else did you observe that lets you know that he's in the violence end of the spectrum? Even though he was not yelling, how was his tone of voice?
Demanding.
Demanding. Mm-hmm. What about his body language? Do you notice his body language as he was talking? He was like even like moving forward, and the tone of voice that he was using, right? So he was, even though he was not yelling, he was on that violence end of this continuum, and she went just straight into silence. What would be the consequences for what she just did?
What she just did?
Yes, she went into silence. What would be the consequences for her for going into silence?
Creating a situation where she can't produce for him.
Yeah, she already knows that she might end up failing, right? To meet that deadline. Like Mr. Chavez said, she did not advocate for herself. So let's see how she does this time around, okay? So going into silence didn't work for Michelle. We're gonna give her another chance to see, try to work this out. Watch how she approaches this crucial conversation this time around.
I said you were a team player. Was I mistaken?
No, I want to be a team player, but
But what?
you know what? I don't like that you're saying that I have to agree with management's commitment in order to be a team player.
What do you mean?
You agree to a deadline that you know I can't accept, behind my back no less. Then you say I'm not a team player if I push back. That's totally unfair and it feels manipulative to me.
So are you saying we can't count on you?
No, you can count on me, but not to give in to ridiculous demands so we end up making promises that we can't keep. Maybe others around here will pretend to accept impossible deadlines and then make excuses about why they can't make them. But that's not how I work. I have integrity. Is that clear?
Crystal clear.
All right. How about this second time around? How did she do?
Great.
Good. She stood up for herself.
She stood her ground.
Yeah.
Both
She,
things, and was
she stood her
being
ground. Go ahead, Ms. Romero.
and she was very honest
All
and
right.
to
She
the
was
point.
honest, to the point. She stood her ground. What else?
And I loved her words. She has integrity.
Yeah, she said, I have integrity, right? So in the spectrum of the silence, violence, and dialogue in the middle, the first one was silence. Where did she go for the second one? Did she go to the middle where they had this conversation, or did she go to the other extreme of violence?
Well, I could say dialogue violence.
Dialogue violence,
All right. So why dialogue?
Because there was conversation taking place, but she was setting her opinion as far as the work.
Okay. So when did that conversation take place? Keeping in mind that pool of shared meaning, right? Where we talk about everybody's adding to the pool of shared meaning. What happened to this pool of shared meaning? When we have that conversation, it's like both parties are adding to that pool of shared meaning, where both have an opportunity to share their facts, their opinions, their emotions, their feelings. So is that what we observed? Did we witness that conversation? And this is crucial. This is crucial for crucial conversations. This is important
I don't
because
think it was I don't think it was I think it was violent.
so without the communication,
Yes.
tell me more.
I think there was better ways to communicate her feelings.
Yeah, like who was the only one adding to the pool of shared meaning?
Her.
It was just her, right? He said what he needed to say. And then after he finished saying that, then it was just her adding to that pool of shared meaning. And that one got smaller and smaller and smaller, right? She went to the other end of the spectrum. And she, even though she did not yell, she used words, her body language also that gave that point across of violence. What were those things that she said? How were those things said? What did you notice?
They came out too strong when she said, I have integrity, like he didn't.
Yeah.
She raised
So
her
like
voice.
say, and that is important, right? When we're saying, well, I have integrity, that's assuming that the other person does not have integrity. And what does that make, when we're talking about this pool of shared meaning, if I say I have integrity, what am I trying to say? And you said it, Ms. Garcia, right? Like I'm saying that the other person does not have integrity. So I'm already closing that pool. It's just what I'm saying that I do. And that's a type of violence. What else did you observe or hear?
Her body language, she stood up.
Yeah, that meeting ended by her standing up. She stood up and she left. That's not how we want to end our conversations. She just left in the middle of the conversation. She didn't care to hear about what he needed to say after she shared those things. So yeah, she totally went like rogue, and she went from, silence to just accepting whatever he wanted to do to that violence, right? What would be a consequence for what she just did?
She could get fired.
Yeah, she's still gonna get fired, right? When she went into silence, she could get fired because she didn't speak up. She didn't say that she needed more time. So she might end up getting fired. And when she spoke up in a way that made her fall into this violent side of the spectrum. And by sharing her thoughts that way, she's still gonna end up maybe with being fired, right? With losing her job. So when we engage in conversations, if we're not aware of our own thoughts and feelings, we make what we call a fool's choice. we tend to think that the only option that we have is being quiet, going to the silence and accept what is being said, or stand up for me. And I'm going to stand up for me by falling into that violence end of the spectrum. We sometimes forget to think about this pool of shared meaning that we have in the middle. And in order for that pool of shared meaning to take place, there needs to be safety. Okay, there needs to be safety. And many times we assume that, you know, we can either be honest or we can be respectful. We're blind to that dialogue option. I can still be honest and respectful and have that conversation and stand up for myself without going into the violence end of the spectrum that we just observed. Okay, so we go into it because, hey, we were using those strategies as a child. I was getting my way doing this. So when I go into a crucial conversation, I either go into that silence or the violence that we talked about, and we tend to forget about that dialogue that can take place. Okay. So why do we make a fool's choice? We can blame it on biology. Okay, so way back when our ancestors lived in caverns, right? They had, we call this, fight or flight. So when they faced a dangerous animal, their brain turned into what we called this reptilian brain, and blood pretty much left our brains and it went to our extremities to get ready to fight or get ready to leave that place, right? So we can blame it on biology. You know, when we make those that fool's choice, it's because of biology. We are in a high stress situation and there's no more blood flowing through our brains because we may not see a mammoth or a lion in front of us, or, you know, when we have a conversation, our boss, that trustee, that neighbor, my son, I don't see them as that person, but it's like, okay, this is a dangerous situation. And all of that blood is just gonna rush into this fight or flight, okay? We pretty much get dumped down because there's no more blood flowing through our brain. So like it or not, um, this is our brain, you know, it's like, okay, we're thinking about it, we're engaging in this conversation, yet when we see danger, when we see those red flags of, oh man, this conversation is about to turn crucial, then our brain turns into this reptilian brain. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with us, it's just that's the way it is, that's the way that we were wired when we faced danger. Okay, so what can we do? We're going to talk about some things that we can do, okay, to make sure that our brain, once it goes reptilian, turns back into that person, you know, that can think things through and that can engage in that dialogue in the middle without going into the violence or silence. So let's take a quick break. We've been sitting down for like almost an hour. Let's take a quick break. Let's do, is 5 minutes okay? How much time do you need? Or you do not need a break? 5? Okay, I see Ms. Garcia with 5. 5 minutes, okay? All right, so I'm going to set up my timer. 5 minutes. I will see you back in 5. Enjoy your break. All right. You can go ahead and start making. I was gonna play you guys a song with the Beatles about getting back and didn't have time to play it. All right. So let me share my screen again to the one that we had. Okay. So we were talking about those crucial conversations, right? And the blood leaving our brain, and we turn into this reptilian brain. Unfortunately, have you all seen that movie, Inside Out? You know, like the four little monitos, and then like one is red, one is blue, the sad one is the blue one, and then the red one is the one that gets upset, right? And in that movie, um, in the, let me just make sure that I'm sharing the right screen. Yes, in that movie, like they actually, we see the people, right? Oh, that's upsetting me and I'm about to get mad, and then they press the button, right? Like I wish that would happen in real life, where we would know, like, okay, I'm about to get upset or I'm about to get sad. We do not get a warning of when those things are going to come out. And unfortunately, the times when we need to behave the best, the times when we need to have that conversation and make sure that there is communication, when those conversations turn crucial, then that's when we behave at our worst. Okay. And like I said, we blame it on biology. So it would be great to say, like, oh, this is about, you know, she's talking to me about this. Man, I think this is about to turn into a crucial conversation. Let me take a deep breath so my blood can go to my brain and I can think about it. And that doesn't happen, right? So that's our human nature. When conversations matter the most, that's when we tend to behave at our worst. And that's just how things are. Okay. So, what I would like for you to do is I'm going to ask you to make a list in a little bit. So, if you can please grab something to write with and something to write on. Many times we know why we toggle between silence and violence, right? We might know, like, okay, with this person, I'm gonna act, you know, into this violence way. Or I'm talking to my boss. No, with my boss, I'm just gonna be quiet and I'm gonna say, yes, whatever you want, yes, that's what you're gonna get, right? So we tend to toggle between silence and violence, and we know why, and we know with who. Okay, sometimes we might act different when it's work related to when it's with someone from you know, a family member or a person that we love. So we tend to toggle between those two. But when do we go to silence and violence? Do we know when that happens? Okay, so I'm going to share another side of my screen, and on my screen, give me a second to set this up. So on my screen, I'm gonna have some examples of some crucial conversations, okay? I'm gonna have examples of crucial conversations. And what I would like for you to do is go ahead and add to any add other situations when you might see people go into silence or violence. So I'm going to give you some examples. Okay. Do you see my common crucial conversations screen? Okay. So these are some examples when we tend to see people going into violence or silence in both professional life and personal life. So for example, some people, you know, have crucial conversations when in the professional level, people's best ideas are not being heard and implemented, when you are not given the resources you need to complete your objectives, like the video that we just watched. Sometimes not everybody on the team is pulling his or her weight, or like despite your best efforts, you chronically miss deadlines. So those are some examples of crucial conversations in the professional life. When it comes to our personal life, sometimes we engage in conversations, crucial conversations, when, you know, your 16-year-old son barely listens to you and is starting to hang out with a dangerous crowd, or your neighbor becomes defensive and angry every time you try to talk with him about how he refuses to keep his two pit bulls locked up. So those are some examples. What I'm gonna ask you to do, I'm gonna send you to a breakout room again. And with your partner, I would like for you to add to these examples based on your experience. What would be some examples when you see people going into the silence or violence mode? What are some of those conversations? What are some of those topics? Those difficult conversations where you might see people going into violence or silence. Does that make sense? Are my directions, do you have questions about the directions, what you're gonna do? Any questions before I let you go? Okay, so with your partner, I'm gonna send you with your same partner. And with your partner, I want you to write at least 3 situations, 3 additional examples when people may go into silence or violence. You can add, professional, you can add personal, or you can add some situations as a board. What are some types of examples when we tend to engage into this violence or silence? What are some of those examples? All right. So I'm going to send you into a breakout, same partner, and I'm going to set my timer for 4 minutes. Okay. So I'll give you 4 minutes, and then you're going to have that 15-second warning. When you come back as a whole group, I'm gonna ask each group to share one example. Okay, so be ready to share one example. Is that good? All right, have fun with your partners.
Okay, I think
All right, welcome back.
Hello.
So what were some of those situations that you were discussing with your partner? Who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Go ahead, Romero.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I heard you. Go ahead, Miss Becky. That's fine. It's because I guess is it Miss Becky, the one that was talking?
yes, it's because we're sharing. I'm sorry, we're here working together, and we're sharing the one mic, so we don't have too much noise. So I just kind of have to like get it closer to her.
No, that's
There
fine.
you
Let
go.
Miss Becky go first, and then I'll go after her.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chavez.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would think that when you don't agree with an opinion being shared and decided to remain just quiet, considering the consequences, that would be in a silence area.
All right, so when engaging in a difficult conversation, okay, and then just choosing to go into that silence mode. Okay,
Right.
so can you think of an example when that could happen? And either family, with
It
your
can work
neighbors.
both ways. It could work both ways, like what just Michelle that we shared with Michelle's video a while ago, to where she had her opinion somewhat, and somewhat was afraid to defend herself or express her opinions.
Okay.
And in personal life, the same thing, depending, on the situation and upcoming consequences, both on a silent area and that could probably would have ended in the violence.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for sharing. So as you're sharing these examples, I'm just gonna push you to be as detailed as possible, okay? So like on the examples that I gave you, it was a person's idea not being heard, or it was talking to my neighbor about the pit bull that are not, secured. What are specific examples when this takes place? Who would like to go next? Mr. Chavez. Oh, that's right. Mr. Chavez, you're next.
Hey, hi. Well, I'm going to use a very specific example and just to, I guess, use this as an opportunity to make an uncomfortable conversation here.
Okay.
One of the things that I noticed as a board is that, like I said, I'm very proud of what we're doing, but I do find it that from time to time, we have a difficult time discussing our difference of opinion. And one perfect example that I'm going to give has happened this past board meeting where, we're talking about if we're gonna our reentry plan. Are we gonna let parents go see the students be on the student athletes go play and things like that? That are important. Obviously, to a lot of people, it's important. But I feel that a lot of times when we're in the board meetings, people, and it includes me, we make the conscious decision of remaining silent and not expressing what we feel. And then once we leave our board meeting, we start expressing our true feelings in a forum that we're not supposed to, whether it be social media or amongst friends and family. And like I said, I know it's going to make us uncomfortable, but I do see that we do, we don't all express what we feel, or we don't discuss what we feel during our board meetings, which I think is very important because for some reason, and like I said, I include myself in this, is we don't like to talk during our board meetings. We kind of just all stay quiet and just vote. And I think I'm hoping that this is why we're having this training, so that we can at least break that ice and learn how to discuss this without without being either silent or violence. Hopefully we get into that happy medium.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chavez, for sharing. And brownie points because you shared a situation with the board. So yay, good job. So yeah, expressing your thoughts or your ideas during a board meeting. Without going into, what I heard you say was most of the time the board goes into the silence mode. and then you just go ahead and you vote, you do what you need to do. But then those conversations happen afterwards in a venue that may not be conducive for you to make sure that you're getting things done, that what's best for your district, what's best for your community takes place before that voting. So it's kind of like these unproductive engagement of conversations where they may seem as violence, right? During the board meetings is silence. We don't share our thoughts. But then afterwards, our behaviors and conversations may turn more into the violence end of the spectrum. Is that correct, Mr. Chavez?
Somewhat. I wouldn't say much to the violent side, but I would say that it hampers that one voice, because we start discuss. In other words, we already made our decision, right? Whether we agree with it or not, because that's how we're supposed to. I don't always agree with all the decisions that are made, and I make it very. I guess I'm one of the ones that's very vocal sometimes about that. But once the decision is made, I kind of understand that that's it. It's done with, and I wouldn't. Well, yeah, I guess you would put it into violence because it hampers the board, as being as one voice. And you hit some of those points, I think, at the beginning when you're like saying, you know what, once the decision is made, there shouldn't be any more. It was their idea or it was his idea. I know it's hard because it's political. We're still in a political position, but I feel that happens way too often in our board, and I hope that we're able to discuss, even if it gets heated a little bit, that we're able to discuss these issues when it's appropriate.
Yes. So when I said, the violence end of the spectrum, remember, it's not, like this fight. We're not going to watch you, fight, engage in a physical fight at the, end of the board meeting or in the parking lot. It's just, remember how we talked about manipulating, right? Or all these different ways of that violence that are not necessarily screaming and fighting. So that's what was meant with that. I like your reflection of, really thinking about what it is that you're doing as a board, and tying it back to Mr. Page, where he talked about your most important task is to get together as a unit. And you're totally right. Once that decision was made, and it was on you whether you wanted to engage in that conversation or not, right? Whether you're the ones choosing to go into the violence or you're going into the silence mode. We're going to talk about how can we engage in this communication where it doesn't necessarily have to be, raising our voice or paying attention to our body language. It's just this communication where everybody adds to that pool of shared meaning. And the ideal is to hope, the intent is to share those strategies. So when you're having those board meetings where we have those opposing opinions, right? Stakes are high, there's high emotions. Even though those three things might be present, how can you as trustees, as individuals, engage in that crucial conversation? So when you make your decision as a board, you come out together, out as one board. After you had that opportunity to share your thoughts before making that vote, and not doing it afterwards. Doing it afterwards just impacts a team in a negative way, because it seems like, there's this false sense of harmony, right? You don't talk about it, everybody votes, you don't share your thoughts. That's a false sense of harmony for the team. That's not true. In a team, there needs to be those conversations. In a true team, everybody shares their thoughts and their ideas. There's just a way for you to do it. So thank you, Mr. Chavez. Thank you, Ms. Romero. Who would like to go next? Give us another example, Ms. Garcia.
I'll go next. Ours was similar to Mr. Chavez, but so I'm going to use the other one.
I was going to say brownie points for you too.
We are having the uncomfortable conversation, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So my first one was not everyone pulling the same weight. I feel like sometimes some of us might work a little bit harder, do more research than others because, I understand life happens, but I just feel like, sometimes a lot of us aren't the same vested as everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Who will have another one? Another example, one more?
Yours was good.
I guess.
Courtney. Share yours.
Mr. Madrid, she's, I was gonna say pushing you under the bus. No, there's no pushing under the bus.
No,
She's
it's a very
encouraging
good.
you to share your
It's
awesome example.
It's on resources, and it was a good one.
Well, I'll share mine. So there's this phrase that's used at work that our bosses say you can do more with less. And so I basically stay on the silent mode of it, that you're expected to have the same outcome, same results. But you deep down, you know that it's more or less like the video. Some of it's gonna be compromised because you're expecting to stock, let's say, 2 trucks with 11 associates, where you're used to stocking it with 18 associates. And like I said, it could be silent, it could be violent. Because silent is you just cope with it, deal with it, and take care of the responsibilities, take on the responsibilities. Where if you're violent, you're expressing your opinion on, really, how am I gonna be able to manage this and this if I don't have this? It's the lack of resources sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like I said, it could be either way, violent or silent as far as that.
Thank you, Mr.
I don't know if
Madrid.
Irene wants to add more to it.
No, it's because I like how he put it. Same output with less resources.
Yeah. And it's kind of like what we watch on that video, right? Shorter timeline, less people, less time. So one of the things that I want you to kind of like, going back and remembering is violence and silence are not the only options that we have. We have this continuum of, conversations, engaging in conversations, still being respectful, talking, saying the truth, standing up for us. It's going to be that communication piece that's going to happen in the middle. These conversations, when we're having these crucial conversations, these can be huge stumbling blocks that will prevent our organization from moving forward, or they can also be great opportunities for your community, great opportunities for your students, great opportunities for you as a team. So how we, I don't want to say attack, but how we handle these conversations will, guide us through, more fights, stumbling blocks. We're just, stopping there, or it will propel you to continue to move forward and come back stronger as a team for your kids in order for you to accomplish that mission that we started with this morning. So what you do with these conversations determines the result that you're going to get. So it's going to be on you if you want to go and stay into the violence or silence mode, or it's going to be on you to decide we need to engage in this conversation before we vote, or I need to engage in this conversation before I'm asked, to go and restock something when I don't have enough people to do it with. It's going to be on you. It's going to be on me and the responsibility that I am going to take. Okay. So these crucial conversations are the crossroads of the results that we want to achieve. We're getting the results that we're getting right now because I am choosing to stay into the violence or silence. And it's going to be on me to decide the results that I want. Okay. So let me go back and share my screen again. Here we go. So the law of crucial conversations. Anytime you find yourself stuck, there is a crucial conversation you're either not holding or you are not holding it well. Every time you get, like a weird feeling or you're not feeling the same about a specific person or a group of people, then there's a conversation that you're not having. And that is your body telling you, hey, this was not handled correctly. We need to handle this. And going into that violence or silence mode is not going to help, okay? Now, one of the things that we need to do, and we started with this reflection earlier when I asked you about how you got your way as a child, is to figure out when I have a crucial conversation, where do I tend to go to? Do I tend to go to violence or do I tend to go to silence? And understanding your style under pressure is going to help you get into that continuum of communication. Now, just to give you a heads up, your style under pressure for professional might or will be different to your style under pressure with your family. Okay, we have different ones. Like, for example, at work, I learned that at work I go into the silence. So I pay attention to and I'm going to teach you how to do this. There's ways to figure out when you're starting to move into the silence or the violence. At home with my family, I tend to go into the violence. There's a higher risk, right? I'm not going to lose my job with my family. I am going to hurt my relationships though with my family. But as we engage in this process, and I do have a quiz for us to figure out where do we fall. Is it violence or do I go into silence? So as we figure this out, we're just getting to know ourselves so we can identify when we move into either or, and how am I going to re-engage my brain? Because remember, we're blaming biology, right? How do I re-engage my brain to come into this conversation again and have that communication where dialogue is going to take place? All right, so let's hear from Joseph Grenny. He's one of the authors of Crucial Conversations, and he's just going to introduce us to the research behind it. So this was not just, pulled from thin air. There's been a lot of research that has been done. Let's hear what this research is all about. Let me just make sure that I'm sharing my computer sound. Yes, here we go.
Anytime you find yourself stuck, there are crucial conversations keeping you there. Our focus in this training won't be on communication. It will be on results. And what tends to keep us stuck and keeps us from producing results in our lives, in our organizations, in our relationships, are crucial conversations we're either not holding or not holding well. Let's begin exploring how to dramatically improve results by eavesdropping on a crucial conversation. A vice president, we'll call Kevin, stepped into a meeting with the CEO of the company to decide on a new location for their corporate offices. The first two execs presented their arguments for their top choices, and as expected, their points were greeted with penetrating questions from the full team. Then Chris, the CEO, pitched his preference, one that was both unpopular and potentially disastrous. However, when people tried to disagree or push back, Chris became slightly defensive. First, he raised an eyebrow. Then he raised a finger. Finally, he raised his voice, just a little. But it wasn't long until the discussion shifted from, is this a good idea, to when should we implement your ingenious plan, in spite of the team's significant reservations. When we began our research over 2 decades ago, our burning question was, are there a handful of moments that disproportionately affect organizational performance, team performance, and even relationship success? And if so, what are those moments? We found that much of whether you achieve stellar results or get stuck can be predicted by watching you during just a few minutes a day. Those moments when there are opposing opinions about a high-stakes issue and emotions are running strong. We later came to call these moments crucial conversations, because our research showed that they profoundly affect many outcomes, like projects, productivity, safety, diversity, quality, and even the happiness and duration of a marriage. And it's not the riskiness of the conversation that determines success or failure. It's how we handle them. That's what brought us to study this VP Kevin sitting in a high-stakes meeting. When it seemed everyone was shutting down and letting the CEO have his way, Kevin spoke up.
Hey, Chris, can I check something out with you?
Everyone in the room stopped breathing. But Kevin plunged on ahead. He, in essence, told the CEO that he appeared to be violating his own decision-making guidelines. He was subtly using his power to push his preference rather than candidly discussing the pros and cons. But the way he did it was not just candid, it was disarmingly caring.
The decision then.
Chris was quiet for a moment.
You're absolutely right. I've been trying to force my opinion on you. Let's go back. Try again.
Can you see what Kevin did here? He found a way to be both candid and respectful. It was pure magic. The team, by the way, didn't choose the boss's first preference for a location, and now years later, it's clear they chose right. But equally important, the skills Kevin used to handle this moment actually strengthened his trust and relationship with Chris. To date, we've spent over 10,000 hours watching people all over the world who have found a way to discuss remarkably risky things in astoundingly respectful ways. That's what all of us need to learn to do more consistently. And when we do, we get unstuck. Relationships improve, teams strengthen, organizational results are profoundly improved, all from handling just a few crucial conversations in a much better way.
All right, so as we're thinking about what he just shared, there are two skills that will help us get unstuck. The first one is identify where you're stuck. And then the second one is gonna be unbundle with CPR. And it's not gonna be, you know, like the CPR trying to revive someone. That's just the acronym we're gonna use to help us remember that. Ms. Garcia, do you have a question? Oh, okay. I thought I saw you raise your hand. All right. So we're going to learn these two skills today. Now, I don't want you to end this meeting today and then go to your next board meeting and then be like, okay, we're ready to engage in these conversations. Let me warn you, we need to learn all of the skills. So if we just want to go ahead and practice, well, you can practice this on your own because this will help you. It's all about me, right? It's helping me figure out where I am stuck. And then you are going to, once you identify, we're going to unbundle it with CPR, okay? So as we're talking about stuck, he mentioned, you know, being stuck. We're going to identify where we're stuck. What does it mean to be stuck? Go ahead and unmute yourself and share with the rest of the group. What does it mean? What could it mean?
Not feeling like your opinion is validated.
Yeah, it could be, you know, I feel stuck because my opinion is not being validated. Thank you, Ms. Garcia. What else? What else could it mean to be stuck?
Well, for me, so Mr. Chavez,
Yes, Mr.
feeling
Chavez.
stuck is that like that it seems like we're repeating the same thing over and over again, the same issue.
Yeah, repeating the same thing, kind of like there's a movie, right, where it's like the same thing happening over every day in and day out. It's the same thing. Yeah, so we're talking about the same issue, being stuck with the same situation. What else? Ms. Jaques, I cannot hear you. Maybe a little bit louder or closer to your mic.
Maybe, wow, ya se me fue.
I'm sorry.
That we don't move up on things because we're stuck on the minute details of it.
Yeah, not moving on. Thank you, Ms. Jaques. What else could being stuck mean?
Not feeling part of a team.
Not feeling part of a team. I feel stuck when I don't feel part of the team. Thank you.
I was gonna say that sometimes it feels when to be stuck is like when what you bring to the table is not valued.
Yeah, I feel stuck when what I bring to the table is not valued. Thank you. Anything else? I'm working, just to give you a heads up, I'm working on my wait time. Wait time needs to be longer than when it is face to face. All right, nothing else? Okay, so just so we all can be, have the same idea of what stuck means, let me give you the definition that we're gonna use for stuck. So the definition is a chronic inability to solve problems or achieve aspirations or goals. So, someone mentioned being stuck on the same, issue over and over and talking about over and over again, or not feeling part of a team. That can be part of my aspiration or part of my goal to feel like I'm being part of a team. Or the inability to feel part of the team, having the same conversation, or not being able to move on, right? Always going back to the same issue. So those are some great examples that you shared about being stuck. So what we are going to do next is that you are going to identify where you are stuck. Okay, you are going to identify an area of your life where you might be stuck. So I'm going to ask you to reflect on your life and where you may be experiencing a poor result, or you may be experiencing a strained relationship. So identify areas where you are not getting the results you want. And on that piece of paper that you have in front of you, I'm going to ask you to record them there. Okay, if you choose to continue with this training, we're going to go back and we're going to continue adding to that. So I'm going to ask you to please keep track of it. I'm going to have some questions on the screen for you to explore the possibilities as you're trying to identify this relationship of where you're stuck, or this area where you might be stuck. And I want you to come up with at least 3 examples, or at least 2 examples for each category. So let me share my screen so I can share the questions that I want you to reflect on as you are figuring out where you're stuck. Okay. So to help you identify these areas where you might be stuck, I want you to think about, what bad results do you want to fix? What good results are you currently unable to achieve? What problem are you always trying to fix? I'm going to leave those questions on the screen so you don't have to write those down. Okay. What problem are you always trying to fix? What do people complain about at home, at work, or with the board? Okay. I'm going to ask you to also reflect on the board. So there's going to be 3 areas where I want you to think of examples. Think of at least 3 examples when it comes to work. Think about 3 examples when it comes to your personal life, and think about 3 examples with the board. 3 examples where you might be stuck. As you're thinking about it, ask yourself the questions that you have on the screen, those 4 questions, okay, to help you guide you through the process. Questions about the task. All right. So I'm not going to ask you to share those with us, okay? This is just for you, just for your eyes only. Be as honest as possible. This is just going to be for you to begin to reflect. Where are we stuck? Where is it that I'm not achieving the results that I want? Some of you gave examples, when it came to the board, when it came to your personal life. We're going to continue with that. So I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes, and I'm going to play some music to help you concentrate. I'm going to give you some concentrating music to concentrate. I want you to come up, please push yourself and come up with at least 3 examples for each one of those areas. Okay. Questions about the task? Are we good to go? All right. I'm setting my timer for 10 minutes.
Miss Loma, can you change it back to the
Yes,
other
ma'am.
screen? Okay.
Yes.
I was like, whoa, what happened?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I was trying to play the music. Let me go back and do my share.
Thank you.
Oh, on this one, my
Yes.
bad. Here we go. Thank you.
What happened to the music?
Oh, you're not hearing it?
It is her. I can hear it. Low, but it's there.
All right. You want me to increase the volume? I'll increase the volume. You have about 3.5 minutes left. You have 1 minute left. 1 minute. All right, go ahead and finish your last example, your last thought. That was 10 minutes. Time went by fast, huh? All right, so were you able to identify those 3 examples for work, personal, and work? Give me a thumbs up if you were able to do that. Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. You are going to give yourselves a little pat in the back and say, great job. Kiss your brains. Kiss your brains. Great job. We're gonna do a fireworks clap. So that's gonna be like, because you've just completed the first skill. You've just mastered the first skill. So congratulations, because you've just identified places where you are stuck. Okay, so that's the first skill. You've just mastered the first skill. Congratulations, my overachievers. Great job in identifying where you're stuck, where it comes to work, personal, and your board life. Okay, so now that we identified where we're stuck, this has been like a toggling of going back and forth on my screens. So let me share my other screen. What we're gonna do now is we are going to go into our second skill. So for our second skill, go here. All right, do you see skill number 2 on the screen? Yes? Okay, so skill number 2. Skill number 2 is about unbundling with CPR, okay? And this is not when someone has a heart attack and then we have to revive them. It's not after having your crucial conversation and then they get so upset that they have a heart attack. No, this is not what CPR is all about. So this skill number 2, unbundling with CPR, is to help unbundle a complex problem. We're gonna break it into various parts, okay? And we're gonna think about this as CPR. We're gonna break it into content, we're gonna break it into pattern, or we're gonna break it into a relationship. When we're having crucial conversations or where we face problems or conversations where we might be stuck, there are 3 things that we are going to identify. In every place where we're stuck, every conversation where we're stuck, there's gonna be a content issue, okay, a content part. And when we're talking about content, this means a single instance of a problem. If either the action itself or its immediate consequences is the issue, you've got a content problem, okay? Single instance of a problem. When we're talking about pattern, and I'm gonna ask you to write these 3 things down because you're not gonna have access to it. So for content, so now we're on skill number 2. Skill number 2 is about CPR. The C is for content, and content is a single instance of a problem. Or if you have a phone that's easy accessible, feel free to take a picture of the screen. Okay, so then Content, single instance of a problem. Pattern is a recurring problem. This is a pattern of behavior over time. Okay, so we identify patterns, recurring problem, pattern of behavior over time. Then we have relationship, how the problem is affecting your working relationship or your personal relationship or your board relationship. Okay, an example of this is when trust is suffering, when I don't trust the person that I haven't had the conversation with, where I don't, I think there might be, other reasons why, this person is behaving this way. Or it could be a competence that is in question. Okay, competence that is in question. So when we're finding ourselves stuck, if we're able to address it right away, it may just be a content problem. Okay, just one single instance of a problem. I'm going to address it, and then we're gonna have this crucial conversation about this content. If I don't address it right away, if I just let it linger and I'm just like, this is gonna resolve, by itself, I'm not gonna talk about it, I don't wanna talk about it, it may turn into this pattern, right? This recurring problem where this happens every time. If we don't address it, there's gonna be a point where the relationship is going to begin to suffer. Okay, my relationship is gonna begin to suffer. There might be some areas on that, on your list where you identify the areas where you're stuck, where you might find all three of these components present. There might be some instances where it may be only one or two, okay? But there's gonna be situations where you're gonna find all three. So did everybody capture the content pattern relationship? Yes? Okay. So what we're gonna do next is that I'm going to, and we're not gonna do this as a whole group. I'm gonna read you a case study. And in this case study, we're going to identify the pattern, the content, or the relationship, okay? Or we might be able to identify all three. So let me switch my screens again. And I'm gonna ask for volunteers or volunteers to help me read this case scenario, and then we're going to identify the pattern, the content, or the relationship, okay? So we're gonna do this together. We're not gonna go into breakout rooms. Who would like to begin reading this case study for me, please? May I have a volunteer?
I'll go.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez.
You're welcome. Okay, so it's your boss has grown accustomed to asking you to produce complex reports for her. She's not asking you because it's part of your job, but rather because you have some background in databases and know how to work with your system. To make matters worse, it's often a last-minute request that takes you away from other priorities. She just asked for a special last-minute report that is very time-consuming to produce. Not only is it tough for you to produce, she's requiring it by 3:00 p.m. today. Way to condense a time frame. To top it all off, you don't believe it will provide her with the information she really needs. But she's your boss, and if she wants it, she should get it, right?
Right. All right. So let's identify the pattern, okay? Let's start with content. Let's identify the content. Is there a content issue with this problem, with this scenario? Go ahead and unmute yourself and just share the content issue that you see.
Yes, because it's something that the boss has grown accustomed to doing.
Okay.
Well, so I guess that falls under pattern, huh?
Yes. She's consistently asking for this, right? That's not part of my job description. She's just always asking for it. What might be the content issue here?
Relying on her, or
relying on her, okay.
Relying on the employee,
on the employee
to produce last minute things.
Mm-hmm. So remember, content is a single instance, right? Is this report that she's asking for going to help her out?
No, it's not gonna help her out.
No, this report's gonna be useless to her, right? So that's the content. This report is gonna be useless to her. And the content also is, it's really not the job of this person to do those things, okay? That's that content. What about pattern? What's the pattern that is identified?
The boss is grown accustomed to asking her for the reports.
Yeah, asking for those reports.
Last minute.
Very last minute, right? She has like these last minute requests. Anything else?
Yes, it's a reoccurring situation that she depends on her.
Yes, ma'am. She's always asking for this, right? Always asking for this. That's a repeated occurrence. Great job, Ms. Romero. Thank you. What about the relationship? What is the issue that may impact that relationship?
That she doesn't voice her concern.
Yeah, she's not voicing up her concern.
It's taking her away from doing her other work duties, her priorities.
Yes, she's not, it looks like the manager doesn't value the work that she's actually doing, right? The other work that she's actually responsible for, she's not being valued for that. And then also, she's not speaking up. She's not feeling comfortable speaking up to the manager, okay? So I'm gonna send you to a breakout room now, and I'm just gonna send you for about 2 minutes, okay? Just about 2 minutes. I want you to talk about which problem will you address. We talked about content issues, we talked about pattern issues, and we talked about relationship issues, right? Which one of those will you address in that conversation and why? Which one will you address first? Is it the content, that the report is useless and that it's not her job to do it? So that was content. For pattern, we said that it's always a last minute request and that the manager gives, like these unrealistic time frames. And then for relationship, it's not, the manager seems to not value her actual work and she doesn't feel comfortable speaking up to her supervisor, okay? So which one of those will you address and why? I'm gonna give you 2 minutes. I'm gonna send you with the same partners. So 2 minutes with a 15-second warning, okay? So out of all of those issues that we identified, which one will you discuss? Which one will you address first? Which one and why? Have fun with your partner. Welcome back. All right, so I'm just gonna ask for 2 examples. Which one will you address? Who would like to share what your partner said? Ms. Garcia?
Okay, I'll we were talking, Ms. Hernandez and I guess the relationship, somebody's ability to be able to build. I think without a relationship, there's no content or pattern. I mean, that's very important to establish that first, to feel that you feel comfortable. That way you can have that content and address the pattern.
Yeah, and this issue has already been happening for a long time, right? To where it's impacting that relationship. So as you begin to engage in this conversation, addressing that relationship first. Thank you, Ms. Garcia. One more, one different to relationship. Everybody agreed? A relationship, that's what we're addressing first?
Yeah, it was relationship. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Perfect. Dr. Mesa?
Well, Mr. Chavez and I actually indicated content. We felt that, like on my end, I'd rather know exactly what it is they're trying to ask or achieve, so I could do the correct report, as opposed to wasting my time on something that wasn't. Mr. Chavez, do you want to add what you indicated on yours?
Sure. Goes along the same lines with Dr. Mesa Chavez. I just said that me personally, right, and this is just going based on my experiences, is that I would have addressed the content and would have made it clear to my boss, you know, I'm going to do this because you're my boss, but this is not part of my duties, just in case, you know, something goes wrong. It's clear. It's already been established between us that, you know, I can't do everything at the same time, but I'm doing it because it's, you know, you're requesting it and you're my boss.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Wouldn't that fall under, well, under relationship, because you're voicing your opinion or you're voicing your concern, and also under pattern because you're letting them know, you know, that you're always, like what Mr. Chavez said, you know, I'm doing it because you're my boss, but it always happens and I'm being taken away from my other duties.
Yeah, so depending on what is being said, right? It could be that relationship where it doesn't seem that your manager values your other work. So you're asking me to do this. This is not part of, you know, this report that you're asking me to do is not part of my duties. So I think you don't value my work as much as you value what you're asking me to do for you. So depending on how you want to share that information, then it will be that content, the pattern, or the relationship. Because if you notice, all three kind of like go hand in hand, right? But the purpose of being able to identify if it's content, if it's pattern, or if it's a relationship, that is going to help you frame the conversation that you're going to have. How many times, and you don't have to raise your hand or say yes, but how many times have you engaged in a conversation and you're going and you're thinking, okay, this is what we need to talk about. But then as you begin to add to that pool of shared meaning, then, you know, your partner or your significant other or your, you know, family member begins to bring up issues that happened like 25 years ago. And you were like, you thought that those were discussed and you're done with, but it's like they bring like things that happened in the past, right? And then you're like, well, wait a minute, I just wanted to talk about this thing. Can we focus on this thing? But it's like, no, they want to bring up, you know, issues. You didn't let me wear that dress when I wanted to wear that dress, you know, or things like that, right? So the purpose of identifying content, pattern, or relationship is to keep you focused on what that conversation should look like and sound like. When we use CPR, what does the C stand for?
Content.
Content.
Yes.
And then the P?
Pattern.
Pattern. And the R? Relationships. Great job. When you unbundle your issue or your problem, when you unbundle it with a TPR, it helps you separate and prioritize all the issues that are involved. Okay. You still have, like, when it happens to that relationship, right? And the response why, well, if there's no relationship, you know, we might not get to where we want to go. Okay, so that's one issue, the relationship. But there's also an issue on content. And there's also an issue with pattern. So just identifying, breaking it up, and for you to identify what is the content, what's the pattern, what's the relationship, that's going to help you with your conversation. Now, in this example, we had all three, but there might be instances when you only have content. There might be instances when you only have content and pattern, where it's not as deep to where it hurts the relationship anymore. Okay, so just identifying will help you identify what's the issue that I need to address. Okay, and prioritize. I may start with relationship, and then I may go to content, or I may start with relationship and then go to pattern. But you need to make it clear in your mind also, what is the issue under content, under pattern, and or relationship? Great question. Any other questions? Okay, so let's go back to the conversation with Michelle and her manager. We're gonna see how the crucial conversation skills can help us get unstuck, okay? She's gonna step up to this conversation as well, and she's gonna use several dialogue skills. And I want you to think about, how does this third time around compares to her previous approaches? In the past, she first went into silence, and then in the second attempt, she went full-blown violence, right? And at the end of the conversation, she might still end up losing her job. Let's see how the skills that you can learn through crucial conversations and that she's applying at this point, how that's gonna help her get what she wants, okay? Or engage in a communication rather than going violence, silence. Let's see.
I said that you were a team player. Was I mistaken?
I can see we're in a tough spot here. There's a lot at stake, and we've already promised management that we'd hit target. Is that about right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I don't want to disappoint our customers or our management team any more than you do. And I want you to know that you can count on me when things get tough. But I also want to set realistic goals. Otherwise, we're setting ourselves up for failure. Equally important, I want a relationship where we're upfront with each other. One where we can work together to set realistic deadlines.
Okay, but I've already made a commitment and management has expectations.
Well, that's the issue that concerns me the most. I know you're under a lot of pressure and you've made a lot of commitments, but you asked me to be on this planning team, and when I suggested a timeline that I thought was doable, you told me I didn't have that kind of time because management was already expecting it. And then when I disagree with that timeline, you hint that if I don't do what you want me to do, I'm not a team player. That doesn't feel right. To be honest, it feels like you're trying to push this project through regardless of the cost. Is that accurate, or is something else going on?
Okay, I hear you, but I really don't know what to say at this point.
And thanks for understanding. Can we agree that we'll stick to the process in the future?
That sounds reasonable, but it isn't a reality right now.
Let's talk about that then. I still can't help but think it'd be better to revisit the plan rather than risk having the project fall apart down the road.
Fair enough. So, what's on your mind?
So how does this compare to her previous two approaches?
It's a more team effort. She voices her opinion in a better manner.
Yeah. What do you mean better manner?
It's not as combative. It's like de-escalation of the situation.
Yeah, goes a de-escalation, right? She didn't just like walk out of the meeting or I have integrity, right? Okay, thank you. What else did you notice? What did she do that worked?
She changed her tone.
Yeah, her tone.
She was very open and honest.
Yeah, she made herself vulnerable, right?
Right.
She expressed how she was feeling. It wasn't that, silence where she's just quiet and accepts whatever he wants to do. And then she didn't become defensive. She was very honest and vulnerable. Thank you. What else? Which issue did she choose to address?
The one where he was expecting so much in a little bit of time.
Yeah, that expectation, right? That relationship. So she chose to work on relationship. What do you think? Was that the right one for her to choose?
I think so.
They still had the content, right? They had the deadline that needed to be met, and he was willing to have a conversation about it. It wasn't just his way or her way with all the time that she needed to do. They still knew that they had this deadline that needed to be accomplished. But what happened to that pool of shared meaning that we were talking about earlier? Based on where we left off on the conversation, were both of them going to be able to share their thoughts, their emotions, their feelings, the facts, and have that pool of conversation open for both of them?
Yes.
I think the way she opened up and rethought the way she was addressing him, I think that just helped him relax also and become part of the team too, because instead of making a demand, now it's like, let's work on it. Let's work on a solution.
Yeah. And who was the one that made that change? Did he behave any differently? Who was the one behaving differently?
Michelle.
It was her. It was Michelle, right?
Oh, yeah.
He still had the same expectations. It was Michelle. So one thing to remember, it's not about the other person. It's not what the other person is doing. It's not about how the other person is behaving. It is about me and how I'm choosing to show up and engage in this conversation. I have no control of what the other person is doing. The other person may know which buttons to push, right? Like, oh, he or she knows I don't like to talk about this, or they might say it in a way that pushes your buttons. But it's not about the other person. You don't have control of what the other person is going to say, do, how that person is going to act. Okay, you have control of you. And it took her to get out of her silence mode and to get out of the violent side and engage in that conversation. She's the one that made it safe for him to be open to suggestions. Okay, so it's not about blaming the other one. Well, I was trying to engage in a crucial conversation and talk about it, but then it was his or her fault. It has nothing to do with the other person. It has to do with me and what I'm doing, what I'm saying, how I'm behaving. Okay, remember body language, the tone of the voice, the words that we choose to use during this communication that shuts down the conversation, or it can, it closes the pool of shared meaning, or it opens that pool for shared meaning. The word that she used earlier, integrity. I have integrity. That closed the pool of shared meaning, right? But the way that she said, I understand you're doing this. I understand you have a deadline. Let's talk about it. That opened up that pool of shared meaning. Okay. So when we're talking about crucial conversations, it has nothing to do with the other person. It's not going to be about, okay, I'm going to engage in a crucial conversation and we're going to talk when so-and-so decides that, we're going to do it. It's not about the other person. It's about you and how you choose to show up. Okay. So before we finish this and we wrap it up, I'm just going to share with you. This is going to be an introduction and explaining the skills. So far, we've only gone through two, right? We identified where we're stuck, and then we unbundled it with the CPR. Like I mentioned earlier, this is just the beginning of that module, okay? But I'm just going to share with you what other things can be learned if you choose to continue to engage in this process, okay?
You have just seen the Crucial Conversations model in action. Before the conversation even began, she was working on herself, working to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. She applied what you have already learned in Get Unstuck when she considered content, pattern, and relationship issues. Going forward, you'll learn more about how she got her heart right by focusing on what she really wanted, and her head right by mastering her stories so she could control her emotions and actually create new emotions that helped her get back to healthy dialogue. Then, during the conversation, she expressed her thoughts or stated her path in a way that encouraged others to do the same. This is the essence of dialogue, when all parties contribute meaning to the pool. In order to have dialogue, we must be looking for signs that others are in silence or violence because they feel unsafe. Then we can take corrective action to make it safe for others as we explore the meaning they contribute to the pool. After we have meaning in the pool, we transform our conversations into results by moving to action, deciding who does what by when and how to follow up. This is Crucial Conversations in Action.
All right. So, in summary, what we covered this morning, okay, we talked about getting unstuck, and the law of crucial conversations is anytime you find yourself stuck, there's a crucial conversation you're either not holding or you're not holding it well. You're going into violence or silence, okay? And we learned 2 skills. The first skill was to identify where you're stuck, and you identified about 3 examples in 3 areas of your life, right? Personal, professional, and with the board. And then we talked about the second skill, which is unbundling with CPR, content, pattern, or relationship. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of homework just for you, even if you choose not to continue to engage. I would like for you to go back to those 9 examples, 3 for board, 3 for professional, 3 for personal, and identify, CPR it, unbundle it. Figure out what the content, if the content, the pattern, or the relationship issue. Go ahead and unbundle it and figure out where it is, that we're stuck. Where, is it a content issue? Is it a pattern issue, or is it a relationship issue? Okay, that just continues with our practice of unbundling. So that's just for homework. Okay, if you want to continue doing that. Today, it did take us, I had planned for us to go through the second module. The first one is the longest one because that's where we're introducing, what Crucial Conversations is all about. We just talked about those 2. The second one, the second module is just a continuation of working on you and that self-reflection. Starting with your heart, what are your intentions when you're engaging in these conversations? Many times we don't have to express our intentions come across. We can tell when people are being, genuine, or if they have a personal agenda. So that second module is all about starting with my heart. What is it that I want out of this conversation that I need to engage on? So that's all I have for you. It is 11:41. We were scheduled only for 3 hours. So I'm like, we started at 8:37. So I had a little bit of time there. But it is our 3-hour session. Thank you so much for participating and engaging in this process. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aloma.
Hello, yes, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Yes, very thought-provoking and good practices for better dialogue that I'm going to take away. Thank you so I can have now more crucial and more substance in my conversations. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Aloma. Anyone else? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn at 11:41 a.m.? I'm sorry, did someone?
I so move.
Okay, Ms. Jaques, may I have a second?
I second.
Second by Ms. Romero. Mr. Chavez, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Madrid?
Aye.
Mrs. Jaques?
Aye.
Mrs. Hernandez?
Aye.
Ms. Romero?
Aye.
Mrs. Garcia?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you and have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Everybody, good job.